Hi everyone, hope you're all doing good. Okay, so this is the third round draw of the 37th edition of the Tapology Lucky Bastard game. So in the last round we had 22 people, I believe, if I remember correctly. And now we're down to just 13, baker's dozen. So let's just quickly run over those, not literally, but just go over those names again. Just remind ourselves who those 13 lucky bastards are. They are D1, D4, K10, Dr. Maxis 2, Great, JP the Champ 27, KK Kombu, Knife Rusty, Love Song, Rigno, Shat, me, Steve Terry, The Dirty UFC Man, Troz, and Vazk88. So there are 13 left in it. Starting to get towards the serious end of it now. Probably only got a round or two left to go. And for this third round draw, we have UFC 328. Hamza Chimaev versus Sean Strickland in the main event. And I think this is going to be a fairly straightforward fight for Hamza Chimaev. Obviously, won the belt in his last fight against Duplessis, and yeah, he made that seem a fairly dominant performance, even though Duplessis managed to go the distance. It's still a very, very one-sided fight. And I think that Chimaev will probably get back to ways of finishing fighters as well with this one, because I think Sean Strickland's a slightly easier fight for him than Duplessis would be, because Duplessis, besides Chimaev, is still the second best middleweight on the planet for my money. And Sean Strickland, he's a very defensive fighter, and it's quite hard for a lot of opponents to try and work him out. And obviously, Anthony Hernandez struggled with that back in February. Got knocked out by him in the end. So Strickland's, I would definitely say he's the third best middleweight in the world if you're doing a quick ranking. I'd be able to go Chimaev, Duplessis, Strickland at the moment, but I think that uh, yes, Chimaev's going to get back to winning ways. Well, back to finishing ways rather. By just get Strickland down fairly early, and then once he gets to the ground, I think he'll finish him fairly quickly with a submission, probably a similar style to how he handled Robert Whittaker. Um, so, so it's probably a similar style of fight is what I'm expecting, but we'll see. Maybe Strickland will be the guy to give Chimaev his first L. Um, Also worth noting, co-main event, Joshua Van making his first defence of his title that he won by a freak injury to Pantoja. He'll be defending that against Tatsuro Terra, very promising Japanese fighter. So that's I'd say it's probably, in terms of the fight, I'd say it's more intriguing than the main event, to be honest. But anyway, that's just how the UFC have ordered it. But you're not here to listen to my rambles, even though that is a side effect of watching these videos. I mean, at this point, you know what you're letting yourself in for at this point, really. You've only got yourselves to blame if you don't want to listen to my incoherent rambles. But let's run through the list. Let's see who D1, D4, K10 is going to be matched with. And he gets Jeremy Stevens. That is Jeremy Stevens for D1, D4, K10. And Jeremy Stevens is a very interesting character, especially as of late. His last UFC fight was last year. He lost that one against Mason Jones by unanimous decision, uh, but since then he's sort of taken a bit of a break from MMA and has been doing a lot of bare knuckle boxing and stuff like that. I don't pay too much attention to the bare knuckle side of things, to be honest. But it is worth noting that in his last combat sports outing of any kind, he lost a bare knuckle boxing match by knockout against another former UFC um, fighter, Mike Perry. Uh, I believe he's the champion over at BKFC. I think he's their welterweight champion or something like that. I'm not 100% sure with the BKFC stuff, but that was the last time we saw Jeremy Stevens in action in any form of combat. And tomorrow night, he's got a bit of a challenge ahead of him against King Green, very experienced. Had a bit of a resurgence as well in recent years. Still picking up wins, still being competitive in the UFC. Um, in fact, he won his last fight against Daniel Zellhuber. Um, so this, in my opinion, is a very straightforward. Not straightforward because Jeremy Stevens is a very tough fighter, but I mean, I think it would be a fairly dominant performance is what I'm looking for there for King Green. Got him, uh, got him to finish him late, third round knockout. Wouldn't surprise me if it also goes the distance because Stevens is tough to finish, but I reckon that King Green should be able to manage it. But D1, D4, K10 definitely with an underdog there to start the round off. Okay, so let's see what's in store for Dr. Maxis 2. What has the wheel got for Dr. Maxis 2? Another veteran of the sport there, Jim Miller. Jim Miller there for Dr. Maxis 2. And again, another fighter who, like King Green, has had a bit of a resurgence in terms of results. Um, Still managed to pick up wins in the last few years and fairly good wins as well. Lost against Chase Hooper last time, but by unanimous decision. But again, that's not too bad a loss at all. To be honest, Chase Hooper still very promising lightweight. Um, so you can't really. I'm not going to hold that one too much against him. Obviously, he's fighting Jared Gordon though, who's again very experienced himself, nearly 30 fights into his own career. Um, Still pales in comparison to Jim Miller's record. It's absolutely ridiculous. 38 wins, 19 losses. That is absolutely insane how many fights he's had over the years. Jared Gordon, again, as I said, very experienced himself. 21 wins and 8 losses. And almost any other opponent, Gordon would go in as the more experienced of the two, but gets dwarfed by Miller's record. Um, Gordon needs to avenge his last fight. He got knocked out by Rafa Garcia, but again, he's younger. He's got more knockout power in those hands at his age than Jim Miller still does. I think if Jim Miller was going to win, it probably try and Jim Miller. To be fair, he's more of an explosive fighter. He's still got early power, and I think he'd probably have to try and finish it early if he is going to get a win. But I think Gordon is more likely to be able to drag it out for longer, sort of wear him down over the course of the fight. And yeah, I'm going with Jared Gordon for a decision win there. But I wouldn't be surprised if you was to see sort of a late Gordon knockout as well. But so I'll just go with the decision here because again, Jim Miller's a very tough guy to finish. But in any case, Dr. Max is two, also with a bit of an underdog there as well. So let's see, maybe Great will have our first favourite of the card. Let's see who Great gets matched with. Okay, King Green. Again, so the wheel's definitely favouring the old school fighters today. Um, King Green there for Great. Um, Obviously, that gives us our first head-to-head, D1, D4K10 with Jeremy Stevens versus Great with King Green. So that's our first head-to-head. Potentially makes for now. Excuse me. For now, that makes it our sort of unofficial Lucky Bastard Game main event. And as I said, though, King Green is definitely the more favourable side of this matchup. Um, like I say, it's besides that one appearance last year. It's been a while since we'd seen Jeremy Stevens in a MMA cage. But King Green's still been very active as well. So that's obviously he's got that going in his favour as well. And like I said, I've not really been paying too much attention to the bare knuckle stuff that Jeremy Stevens been involved with, but it does make me wonder how much damage he's taken over there. I do understand it's more superficial damage over at BKFC and whatnot. It's more cuts um, rather than sort of brain damage and concussions and things like that. You're more likely to have fights stopped due to doctor stoppages because you've had your eye slashed open and sort of looks more gruesome uh, than it is in some ways. But still, you're still taking your punch, you're still taking damage, you're still adding to the mileage on your career. And yeah, I'm just not sure how much damage Stevens would have accumulated in that, particularly with the knockout loss, as I mentioned, to Mike Perry. Uh, but yeah, King Green, slightly fresher of the two, been more active, and uh, as I say, he's yeah, like I say, he's still been well fighting MMA. Really, he's been fighting better opposition. Really, I'm not really sure exactly the standard of fighter that uh Stevens has been fighting in BKFC and all that. I know that I believe he had a boxing match against Jose Aldo or something, or maybe that was someone else. I'm not sure, but um, mostly former UFC fighters anyway. But in any case, King Green uh, is my pick for this one, and I think Great is going to be on the winning side of that head to head with D1, D4, K10. Okay, so we move on to JP the Champ 27. Let's see what the wheel has lined up for him. Mm. Jordan Santos. To Jordan Santos for JP the Champ 27. And fairly low down on the card, he's got yeah, very unfavourable matchup against Surukayev. Apologies for butchering that pronunciation. Um, but there's no way of sort of sugarcoating this. Surukayev is a massive favourite for this, and to be honest, rightly so. He's still undefeated, 11-0 in his career, won his first two in the UFC. Um, Pure knockout artist, usually early as well. We saw what he did to Eric McConaughey last time out, and yeah, that's pretty much what we know about Surukayev so far. Very very dangerous fighter, very explosive knockout artist, and to Jordan Santos on the other hand, 11-2 in his career, so he's got a couple more fights experience, but I don't think that would be enough to nullify the difference in skill. 1 and 1 in the UFC, and he's coming off a win. To be fair to him, against Danny Barlow, unanimous decision win there, but it looks fairly well rounded and has never been stopped. To his credits, but both of those losses have been decisions. But I think that's going to change tomorrow night uh, because I just don't see how he stands up to the power of Surakayev. So, yeah, JP to champ. I think this is where your run in the competition comes to an end, I'm afraid. Okay, let's see if the wheel's a little bit kinder to KK Kombu. Let's see what the wheel's got in store for KK Kombu. Okay, arguably even worse in my opinion. Aussie Diaz for KK Kombu. So, again, Aussie DS is a massive, massive underdog for his fight against Ateba Gautier. Similar story. Ateba Gautier, pure knockout artist. He didn't go the distance against Andre Pulev last time out to get the win there, but besides that, he's been pure knockout artist. I mean, I don't like to mention gambling too much on here, but the odds for him and for Gautier at the moment are minus 1,785. And it's been a very long time since I remember somebody being that heavy a favourite in a fight. Aussie DS plus 870 by comparison. And yeah, I just don't see how Diaz stands up to Garcia here. Especially given the fact that Diaz himself is a striker and looks for knockouts. That's his style of fighting. That would suit Gautier down to a T. And Diaz has 3 losses on his record, and concerningly, they've all been by knockouts. All 3 of those losses have been by knockout, which um, isn't doesn't bode well when you're fighting a knockout artist like Tabor Gautier. So yeah, I think this is where we say goodbye to KK Kombu as well. I think this has been the end of the road for him, unfortunately. Okay, let's see if the wheel has any more mercy on Knife Rusty. It's been pretty brutal so far. Only one favourite, in my opinion. But Knife Rusty, let's see what you're going to end up with. You're going to get a Tatsuro Terra. Tatsuro Terra there for Knife Rusty. And as I mentioned in the co-main event, one of the more intriguing fights on the card. I'll say is more intriguing than the main event itself, but I suppose that's a matter of opinion. So, for context, Joshua Van making his first defense of the flyweight title after his 26-second win over Pantasia, rather, sorry, uh, and Alexandre Pantoja, where he sort of slammed him down and uh, Pantoja fucks up his arm doing that. So it's a TKO win via injury there. Um, Obviously it's still a win, still well earned, and it's not really fair to call that a fluke, but the freak injuries are a part of the sport, and we didn't really get to see the fight, if we're being honest. We didn't really get to see how he would fare against Pantoja. But yeah, obviously Pantoja. It's maybe one day they'll make that rematch. At the moment, Pantoja's still resting up. I'm assuming, because it did look pretty nasty what he did to his arm there. And yeah, so Joshua Vance makes his first defense against Tatsura Terra, and to be honest, I think Terra wins this. I think I've got him. It's very very close fight, and I've gone back and forth on it a few times, but. Um, very similar in terms of their experience and in skill set. But in my opinion, I think uh, Terra's just very is much more of a I said, I say he's going to be putting the pressure on a bit more, in my opinion. I think he's going to be pressuring Van all the time, looking for the knockout or the sub, which either way he's very capable of getting. He doesn't really seem to have much of a preference for either. He can end a fight however he wants to, seemingly. Um, and He's never been finished either. He's only got one loss on his record. That was a decision loss. And Yeah, I think Jack Van's very it's a very close fight, but he's definitely going to have his work cut out for his first defense. Um, Again, always a knockout threat, but I think Terra's a bit more well-rounded MMA fighter than Joshua Van is at the moment. But we'll see tomorrow night. But in any case, this is quite a good pick here for Knife Rusty. I think the wheel might have given you a winning fighter here, but still can't rest easy though, because as I say, it's a very close fight. So I think you got a favourite, but only just, if I'm being honest. But still, flight favourite is better than no favourite. Okay, so we move on to Love Song now. Let's see what the wheels got in store for Love Song. It's Pat Sabatini for Love Song. That's Sabatini. And up against William Gomez. Uh, and again, this is one I've sort of gone back and forth a couple of times, but for me, I think Sabatini's recent win streak is the deciding factor here. Three fights win streak. Um, One against Chepe Mariscal last time, uh, and as well as MMA, he does a lot of grappling outside of the UFC as well. So he's still staying active. Um, so yeah, and he's of course that's his sort of preferred um fighting domain. Really, that's his style. He's a grappler, submission expert at that, and William Gomez, almost an opposite style fighter, really, because he generally tends to look for the knockout. But can go the distance as well, which is always a good sign as well. But he's more of a um, yeah striker that um, can be patient, more than happy to take his time in a fight. But I think if Sabatini gets Gomez to the ground, I think it could be a long night for Gomez. I'm not sure if he finishes Gomez because Gomez very tough fighter, very tough to finish. But I think Sabatini wins after 3 rounds to take a decision win here. So again, a favourite here for Love Song. Okay, let's see what is in store for Rigno. Let's see what the wheel has lined up for him. Sean Brady is the fighter for Rigno. Sean Brady there. So again, another sort of grappling expert, submission artist. He's fighting Joaquin Buckley. Um, and Again, it's another sort of I suppose a similar fight to the last one, really, where you got more of a grappler versus more of a striker. Um, but this is one thing that does stand out for me here is obviously Brady, known primarily for his grappling, for his submissions. So he submitted Leon Edwards, if you remember, the former welterweight champion. He did get knocked out in his last fight against Michael Morales, although again, Michael Morales is a very, very good looking prospect at welterweight. It's only a matter of time until he gets a title shot, surely. So again, I'm not going to hold that one against him too much. Joaquin Buckley, again, he's got knockout power, so that'll be uh his plan for this fight. That'll be how he goes into this looking for that knockout win. Probably take a bit of confidence from the Morales win. Think, well, if Morales can do it, why can't I? So I suppose he'll have a bit of confidence in that sense. But one thing that does, as mentioned just a second ago, that does stand out is Brady very much a submission artist. That's what he looks for. And Joaquin Buckley has never won or lost a fight by submission. Um, in all of Buckley's uh, 28 fights in his career, not a single one of them has ended by submission, win or lose. Uh, and I think that's a stat that's going to change tomorrow night. I think once Brady gets him to the ground, I think it's. I mean, obviously we've seen Buckley's grappling before, but I mean, I think not quite against someone as good as Brady. Uh, it's yeah. I think once Brady gets him to the ground, it's going to be relatively quick fight from there on out. Buckley will fight him off for a bit, but um, I think once it gets to the ground, it's Brady's fights. So again, I think Rigno should be considering himself very lucky for that one. Uh, and my prediction for that fight is round two submission for Sean Brady there. But yeah, Rigno, you got a favourite. Hopefully, your favourite comes in for you. I don't see why not, to be honest. But unless, of course, Buckley does manage to land another massive knockout, um, which he's more than capable of. Still, whenever I think of him, the first thing that always comes to mind is that spinning back kick knockout. Who was that against now? That was oh fuck. The name escapes me off the top of my head, but that's the knockout of that always comes to mind when I think of him. So who knows? Maybe he'll do that to Sean Brady tomorrow night. Well, that's going to annoy me while I think of that. Anyway, move on to Shat. Uh, bit of a crude sense that. Move on to Shat. But yeah, no, Shat is up next. Let's see what the wheel has in store for Shat. It's Roman Kopilov for Shat there. Roman Kopilov. And probably not spelled that right, and I probably not pronounced it right. So apologies if I haven't. It's bloody hell. Excuse me. Right. Roman Kopilov fighting, of course, Marco Tulio. Um, again, they're both knockout artists, a very similar style of fight. Really, it's Kopilov has been on a two fight losing streak at the moment. Lost both of them by decision. Uh, Gregory Rodriguez and Paulo Costa, though, two fighters um, that are still very much a force in the rankings at middleweights. So again, it's worth noting, but I'm not going to hold that against him too much. It just means that that's the level he's at the moment. Just maybe in and around the rankings, but not quite at contender level yet. But yeah, but Kopilov usually looks at a knockout and usually later in the fight as well. A lot of his knockouts are come in the second and third round, so he wears them down. He's a very patient fighter, but when the chance comes to finish, he usually does take the opportunity with both hands. Um, Marco Tulio, again, very similar style. Uh, Knockout artist, but he's usually earlier on in the fight. Usually tries to finish things a little bit quicker. His last fight was also a loss, but that was a knockout loss against Christian Leroy Duncan with that spinning back fist and the follow-up punches afterwards. But again, Christian Leroy Duncan's a brilliant striker as well. So I'm not going to be holding that against Tulio too much. Um, the only thing I will say though is that Leroy Duncan's not quite at the same level as the likes of Costa and Gregory Rodriguez for my money at the moment. Uh, so because of that, I think Kopilov's slightly been in there with slightly better opposition, and for that, I've gone with Kopilov for this. So I've gone with a second round knockout, but it's going to be an explosive fight either way. Whatever happens, it's a close fight and it's going to be explosive. I'd be surprised if it goes the distance. Let's put it that way. I think someone's getting knocked out in that one. So let's see who the Whittle has in store for me. Time to learn my fate. It's been a while, I think, since I've last made it to the third round. Let's see if I can maybe make it to a hypothetical fourth round. Nope, nope, not happening. Jeremy Stevens, I've been drawn with there. So yeah, that's well, it's also our first double up of the game with D1, D4, K10. But as I mentioned earlier, I don't fancy Jeremy Stevens. He's for this fight against King Green. He's I say he's been in a lot of the bare knuckle stuff, and I do wonder about the damage he might have taken during that. And King Green sort of kept himself a lot fresher in MMA fights, a lot more recent, yeah, a lot more recent activity in the cage rather than the ring or whatever they use. And I know BKFC is it ring or a cage technically? Because it's a ring because it's got ropes, but it's not a square, is it? It's like a sort of an octagon shaped ring or something, isn't it? So I'm not really sure whether under the jurisdiction of whether that counts as a ring or a cage. Probably, I'd say it's more like a I'd say it's more like a ring, isn't it? So I suppose if it's ropes versus mesh, then it's if you got meshing, then it's a cage. But if you got ropes, it's a ring, surely. Uh, Regardless of the shape of the cage or ring in question. I mean, yeah. Sort of going off topic a bit there, but as I mentioned, I'm not overly confident in Jeremy Stevens' chances here. Um, it does give us our it does pretty much I suppose at this point there's only three more to go through after this. So I'm assuming this is going to be unless the last three are all lumped on the same fight. This is pretty much going to be our Tapology Lucky Bastard Game main event for this round. King Green versus Jeremy Stevens with two on Stevens, one on King Green. Uh, but anyway, I think that's where my run in the competition comes to an end. Um, okay, so we move on now to the Dirty UFC man. Let's see who the wheels got in store for the Dirty UFC man. Yep, King Green. So that's definitely going to be our Lucky Bastard Game main event. King Green for the Dirty UFC man. So that's two versus two now. Um, so yeah, not really a lot I can add to that other than that I'm expecting King Green to win this. As I still been in better, still been in actual MMA fights and still been keeping him, and still been getting wins as well. So he's still proven to be a threat even at 39 years old. It's also worth noting that Jeremy Stevens is also 39, by the way. So there's not really a stat that makes any difference. But yeah, no, King Green is still very much a knockout threat, and even at the later stages of his career. So the Dirty UFC man definitely on the more favourable side of that fight. Okay, so we move on now to Troz. Let's see if he'll end up on the Jeremy Stevens or King Green fight, or whether he'll get another one entirely. Let's see. This is for Troz, and he gets Mateus Rebecki. Mateus Rebecki there for Troz. I'm gonna absolutely apologies for butchering the spelling and pronunciation. AUSZ. Uh, um, how are we spelling Rebecki? Oh, funny E Becky. Yeah, apologies for butchering that one, but anyway, he's up against the much more easy to pronounce Grant Dawson. Um, I wish all fighters would call Grant Dawson. It made my job a lot easier. Um, but all right, so I suppose we better start with Rebecki. He's currently on a two-fight losing streak, both by decision. To be fair, so he's a tough fighter. He's very hard to finish, but he does need to turn that losing streak around. Very exciting fighter as well. We'll give him that. And he's always looking to finish the fights. So he's as a fan, you can't complain with fighters like Mateus Rebecki. We don't really care about the records all that much, or their wins or losses, as long as they're entertaining, and he is. That's all we can ask for. Um, and as I say, is up against Grant Dawson though. Again, very entertaining fighter himself. Got that first treated us to that first round knockout against Manuel Torres last time. Um, Usually tends to look for a submission, so it's been like I say, it's been a bit of an odd one that last one, all slightly more unusual, but make no mistake, even though he prefers to try and look for the submission, he's still very much a knockouts threat. He's still got the striking credentials to end anyone's night on this day at lightweight. So that's so yeah, certainly got that going for him, and I would have thought he'd look for a submission again this time out against Rebecca, but whether Rebecca gets finished, I can't really see it happening, to be honest. I think this goes the distance and Grant Lawson takes the decision win. That's my prediction for that one. Um, Grant Dawson has been knocked out three times himself, though. That's the only slight caveat there is so maybe Rebecca could maybe if Rebecca does manage to find a sweet spot, that could be his method of victory. It's probably the most realistic way I'd say Rebecca tries to get the win, and if he does put on that kind of pressure, then there's no reason why he might not find it. So should be able to well at least try and do that anyway. Pretty sure Dawson would do a pretty good job of shutting him down though, and take it to a decision. But we'll see. That's Tross will certainly be hoping that I'm wrong anyway. And finally, let's see who Vazquez 88 is going to be paired with. Let's see what the wheels got in store for Vazquez 88. And that is a brilliant fighter there. As I said, heavy favourite to end it for Vazquez 88. Basinger Susurakev. Again, apologies for absolutely butchering the pronunciation on that name. And apologies for the the subsequent butchering of the spelling as well. Sanger Su Su RKF, KAEV. Let's as mentioned up against Jordan Santos. That's head to head. Someone had Jordan Santos earlier. Who was it? It was JP Champ 27 who had Jordan Santos earlier. Um, yeah, that's another head to head. So interesting head to heads fairly early on in the cards for a bit of preliminary entertainment in this game. And as I've mentioned in when I was going over it earlier, Susur Akayev, pure knockout artist and very heavy favourites. Uh, Jordan Santos is very tough, very hard to stop him. Um, and he's it does look a fairly well-rounded fighter given the stage that in his career, 11-2 in his career, and he looks a little bit better than that. It looks a bit you'd think he'd have had maybe three or four more fights in his career, given how well he has looked. But this is just a complete mismatch. I mean, I hope Jordan Santos wanted this fight because if not, then the UFC have completely screwed him over. But Sorokayev does need opponents, and well, uh, Jordan Santos very bravely stepping up tomorrow night. But I think this is going to be a very, very quick night. Work for Sorokayev. Vasquez 88's also going to be hoping that's the case as well. But in any case, that's about as safe as you can get in this game. Okay, so that concludes the third round draw for the 37th edition of the Tapology Lucky Bastard game. Uh, right, let's just get back onto, yeah, we're still on the PowerPoint, that's good. Right, so we'll just run over those names one more time, just to remind ourselves. We have D1, D4, K10 with Jeremy Stevens, Dr. Maxis 2 with Jim Miller, Great with King Green, JP DeChamp 27 with DeJordan Santos, KK Kombu with Ozzy Diaz, Knife Rusty with Tatsuro Terra, Love Song with Pat Sabatini, Rigno with Sean Brady, Shat with Roman Kopilov, me, Steve Terry with Jeremy Stevens, The Dirty UFC Man with King Green, Troz with Mateus Rebecki, and Vazke88 with Basinger Susurakayev. So that concludes the draw for the third round, and right mix there of favourites and underdogs. I would probably say most of you are going out in this one, to be honest, and because we started to get some double ups towards the end and a few head to heads to make it a bit more interesting. But for the most part, we're quite spread out on the fights, with most people getting sort of individual fighters. I think it's only of them. I think maybe the Surakayev and Santos and King Green and Stevens fight are our head to heads. Could be wrong, but otherwise you're all sort of on your own fighting individuals. So and when that happens, generally from experience, it doesn't usually end up 50-50. Usually when the wheel cuts the field in half, it's usually when we have quite a lot of double ups and head to heads, but quite often when we have quite a few individual fights or fights where it's spread out and the results are not tied to the results of another player's fighter, we do tend to end up with a lot of people going out or a lot of people going through. Um, that's when you do tend to get the ones that are a bit more off the 50% baseline, which should be the average for this game. But in this case, I think they're off the top of my head, I believe there's been a few more underdogs pop up than there have been favourites. So I would say maybe just over half of you go out. Um, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out tomorrow night. All that leaves me to say is good luck in this game. Good luck to all of you. Good luck with your picks on Tapology. Um, If you got any real life bets on this card, then good luck with those. But until next time, so long for now.